This is a bit of an annoying game to work with, even if it was fun to play through. At the very least, it's gonna take me a while to get used to the two-screen nonsense, assuming I ever do get used to it, though that's more of a problem with its original console than the game itself, really. Anyway, this is the most modern of the 2D Metroid games I'm going to be going through. And if nothing else, this game certainly made me very hopeful for what we have to expect from Metroid Prime 4 when that finally comes out. I wonder just how many remixes of this particular song there are out there. Or, hell, how many remixes there are of a whole lot of Metroid songs. Anyway, since we don't want to just sit around for me to enjoy the background music for 2 minutes or see me fumble around to delete an earlier failed attempt to record this game as we start from the top, let's skip ahead a bit. Okay, apparently the intro to the mission is a little different this time around, even if our overall job is the same. Nice of them to give us a full story recap, considering how long it was between Metroid installments when this was pumped out. And if nothing else, I'm liking the fact that the artwork for the fight against Mother Brain makes it feel more epic than it actually was for us to go through with it. Data that possibly made some of the Federation wonder if they'd accidentally sent their troops to the StarCraft universe. At least if their gear is any indication. And great. The picture of the Council is making me think of the Star Wars Senate. Will Senator Palpatine take the stand, please? Well, if it's a unanimous decision by the Council that we never interact with, how can we possibly refuse? Come to think of it, how much is the Federation prepared to pay us for this job? Hell, how much did they pay us for Zero Mission? And how much of that money did Samus have to spend to replace her ship? Right, time to set foot on the planet we've already left. But now with better graphics, despite a smaller screen to work with. As if the new controls, going from moving around with directional buttons to a thumbstick, among other things, aren't going to be enough to throw me off. This time, and apparently the only time in the 2D games, Samus has a melee attack. I wouldn't mind seeing more of that in other Metroid games, but considering how infrequently the series actually makes new games, and how convoluted the timeline is at this point, I'm not gonna be holding my breath. And sorry for the slow start. I'm just trying to make sure that all the button mapping I've done on my computer works with the combination of the mouse and the PlayStation 4 controller I have connected. Granted, it's annoying that I have to emulate something where I actually do own the console, but I never could figure out how to fully record a 3DS game from the little console anyway. And considering just how legitimately uncomfortable it is to play through games like the admittedly fun Kid Icarus Uprising on the same 3DS, I'm probably going to have to remap this emulator again, just to make the controls feel like something that won't force me to get outright physical therapy for my hands here. Well, at least I have basic movement figured out at this point. That's a start. Yikes! Did not think those things did that much damage in AM2R. Okay, certainly didn't take us long to start running into missile blocks in this version. Yeah, definitely gonna have to do some more tweaking to my emulator's controls to get free aiming to work the way it was intended. Still, we can work with this for now, considering it's still the early game. When you hit the melee button just as an enemy's about to attack you, you knock them back and stun them, which makes them easier to hurt, and thankfully, Samus auto-aims to somebody you've stunned. Some say that makes this game a bit too easy. Personally, I find it an interesting change of pace. Really gives this game a different feel than the others. Excuse the stupidity there. That's more my fault with the settings for the emulator, not the game's fault. If free aiming was working the way it does in the actual console, you'd have the ability to aim in all 360 directions, not that almost directional button sort of method that we seem to have got at the moment, which makes it tough to really have just the right angle. Though I suppose it's nice to know that we can shoot diagonally upwards while jumping now. It's also interesting to see that apparently killing enemies that aren't stunned after a good melee counter doesn't drop as much energy to heal us afterwards. Well, I think we've already done a successful counter once, but I suppose this early in the game, and with the iffy way I'm getting used to the control scheme, I had no issue with some more blatant tutorials this early on. Though I'm pretty sure this is the only 2D Metroid title to give us such blatant tutorials when we're using the baseline equipment at the start of the game. The other games only tell you about the controls when you gain some new power over the course of the adventure. Not sure if that's a side effect of instruction manuals ceasing to be a thing by the time this game was released, or if there's some other reason for that. Right. Hope you won't get tired of seeing us do that to a lot of easily killed enemies. Yeah. Definitely have a lot more fiddling around to do with the control settings for the emulator at some point. But for now, it looks like we'll be able to make do with the same limits and aiming angles as the previous games we've gone through so far. Okay, so save points aren't going to be the only place we can refill ammo in these tunnels. That's certainly interesting to know. Wonder if there's going to be a health-specific pad to go along with the ammo-specific one. Okay, wasn't expecting there to be an outright cutscene for when we found the first upgrade. Sure, the cutscene isn't much, just us staring at the statue that has the upgrade. And of course, it's not going to be a surprise that we're getting the morph ball first. Literally every game where we don't have it right from the start, it's always the first thing we get. Yeah, I'm gonna avoid using as many controls that require the touchscreen as possible, though I'm afraid that's not always going to be possible as we keep moving forward. Good thing to know we don't need to gain bombs before we can deal with that breed of monster. I think I'll grab the missile upgrade before we make that drop that we have no means to climb back up from right now. 3? Doesn't it usually increase in 5s? Right. Nothing else to grab up here for now. Onward and downward. Okay, we've got some monsters right next to the save point. That's disconcerting. In every other 2D game, save rooms are pretty safe, kind of like the Resident Evil games. And one of these days I should get around to doing the Resident Evil games. But that's the problem when I have a massive list of things I'd like to get around to doing. Some of which I haven't actually tried before, and others I remember fondly, but haven't been able to get running properly on my computer for a long time. Okay, so this time it isn't going to be our scanner finding Metroids for us. We've got a Choser device in a central room to tell us how many in a given area we have to kill before we make progress. And if I remember right, in this game it's the Choser devices that clear the way to the next area for us, not the earthquakes caused by the Metroid Queen at the bottom. Not really a fan of that little change in atmosphere. A little hard to call myself a purist though when I'm basing this on the experience of a fan-made remake of the same source material. If Nintendo chose to sacrifice some atmosphere by having the Choser take more of a role in this game, then that's kinda their right. Okay, that's something new. Seriously, is there a reason that something that's clearly of Choser origin of some kind seems to be inside of some kind of snakehead? I don't recall any other times when they've done something snake-related. Okay, so we've got some energy gauge that only exists in this game for some extra special abilities. And I've got to say, the scan pulse is a solid way to start us off. At the very least, it'll help prevent us from wasting time by bombing random bits of ground in the hopes of finding something to break in a given area. But I get the feeling once we grab some more Aeon abilities, that trick is going to be used sparingly. Especially in rooms, where it's especially obvious what is and isn't breakable. Yes, we have a wall jump in this game, and thankfully it's not especially strict about the timing of the jumps here. Very nice to know. We've certainly been running into cutscenes pretty quickly so far around here. Granted, they're not really long enough to interrupt the flow of gameplay all that much, but it's still kind of noticeable considering the style of game this is, and how short the 2D Metroid games generally are. And I do like the quick view we had of the young Metroid just killing a random monster as we're drawing closer to the first one. Though I severely doubt we're going to be dealing with that particular breed of Metroid at the start. Okay, so we're getting a proximity alarm as we get close to one of them. An alarm that blinks more frequently and in a hotter color the closer we get. Very nice touch. The hell? Okay, I know the missile door earlier had a different look than usual, but what's supposed to get us through that barrier? It's a little early for super missiles, isn't it? I mean, we're still in the opening 20 minutes of the game here. We haven't even gotten our first energy tank or killed the first Metroid. Add in just how much damage even the lower-end enemies can cause, and my opening controller issues? And I'm getting a little nervous here. Okay, so going this way is colder? Didn't expect that. Well, we aren't gonna have an issue with having enough missiles when we get to the first one, that's for sure. Right, may as well save in a hurry since this thing's just sitting here conveniently for us. Not used to blocks at crouching level being missile blocks, but since we don't have bombs yet, it was definitely the only option there. Kinda like the fact that Samus seems confused a bit, since with all of her other adventures, she's never actually seen a Metroid transform like this. After all, this planet is supposed to be the only place where they go through their full life cycle like this. Everywhere else, they're stuck in just one form. Oh, I suppose the Metroid Prime? But that's something to get into another time. For now, I'm just going to appreciate the fact that even the most basic Metroid form on this planet has more attack variety in this version of the game. And chuckle at how my controller issues are making this fight a little harder than it strictly needs to be. Still, even with that unintentional handicap, we killed him with little trouble, and now we have to travel back to that device to drain the acid blocking our way. Again, not a fan of them making us have to make progress that particular way, but I suppose us running to a certain point to essentially unlock the next area feels more engaging than just reacting to some distant beast shifting the terrain in its rage. Okay, probably says something that I don't remember quite how we caught the charge beam in the previous game when we went through it a relatively short time ago. It also says something that the charge beam has expanded use in this game since it's able to unlock certain types of doors. Last time, it felt like it was just there for the sake of just being there. Yeah, more than a little embarrassing that a single random bat in a cave somehow managed to do about as much damage to us as a Metroid, the especially dangerous creatures we were sent to this planet to kill. Still, it's the early section of the game, and I think we're allowed to fumble about a bit, especially since this is on a different system than any of the other games, with its own unique control schemes and occasional gimmicks to change things up. Seems I noticed there's at least one nearby upgrade we should be able to grab before we move on. Good. That little circle in the unexplored but still scanned area was starting to drive me a little crazy here on commentary. I figured 3 games into this series I had to have noticed something that obvious before leaving. Granted, there looks like another upgrade in the sections we can actually get to that's just sitting there, but it looks like it'd be more of a pain to get to it again. As far as first clips at the start of a game go, I'd say we're doing pretty well. Definitely seeing a lot of bodies this early in, and I'm not sure if we saw bodies like this so early in AM2R. Right. Of course the Chozo had to make flushing an acid toilet seem epic. Of course, despite the fact that we haven't been damaged by acid yet, I'm still looking forward to when we don't have to worry about it at all anymore. Place your bets. How long until we get that suit upgrade? Right, I assume we won't be able to go further down this way until we get bombs. Okay, just what makes that statue worth a short cutscene of its own? Okay, and apparently that statue doesn't do anything for us. For now, at any rate. We'll see how long that remains the case. Wait, crystals? The same type of crystals that the baby Metroid is supposed to be able to eat at the end of the game? Definitely early for us to run into that kind of barrier, as well as a barrier for the spider ball that we don't have just yet. Okay, so we're apparently only supposed to get here with the spider ball. I can certainly appreciate the fact that they managed to make the terrain and the related puzzles seem unique, despite probably using a very similar layout to what we went through in AM2R. And this game has elevators when AM2R didn't. Definitely not a lot of risk of our experiences in the previous game making things too easy for us here, though given my memory, that might not have been a concern in the first place. Definitely going to be getting a lot of use from that counterattack ability. Wonder if Metroid Prime 4 is going to have anything similar to that trick, or if it's just going to be unique to this particular game.